up, everybody? My name is James D. Fiore, and this is Blackballed. Well, we're back covering the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. However, today is a lot different from any of these shows that I've done before. Usually, I have ex-members of the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, aka the Plymouth Brethren Crazy Cult, or journalists like Michael Bachelard, writers, or experts in cults. But today, for the first time, I'm going to be speaking with an individual who had a relationship with a person that was inside the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, but she was not a member herself. If you remember, people are born into this church. It is extremely rare to not be born in this church and then become part of it. So we would like to welcome today our guest. Her name is Emily Victoria. Emily, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good. You reached out to me a few days ago, and I was when we spent a little bit of time talking on the phone, and I was actually kind of gobsmacked in a way because your story is so unique. So can you, before we get to the relationship and then all the post-mortem and everything that happened, can you tell me what your upbringing was like? Like, where were you born? Where did you grow up? And how was that? How was that childhood?
Yeah, so I was born in South London. And yeah, I had a pretty normal upbringing. Nothing unusual. All good.
No. And then, and so you're 25, I think you said?
24.
24, my bad. And so where did you meet this young man, and what were the circumstances behind how you guys met?
So I joined a brethren company, and that is how we met each other. And we were just friends at first. But yeah, I worked there for about 7 months in total.
And what was it like working there? Because we talked about this a little bit. We touched on this on the phone, but when you work at a brethren company, there's certain rules that you realize are in play without them actually telling you that they're in place, such as you can't eat at the same table with someone who's a member. So how long did it take for you? And did you know when you went when you first were hired for that position that it was a cult-owned company?
So I didn't know, but in the interview, the manager did say to me, like, we are a part of the Plymouth Brethren. And that was basically it. So when I started working there, it was actually, I think, my first week. At the very end of the first week, a worldly girl said to me, "Oh, by the way, you can't sit and eat lunch with these guys. That's just not allowed." That's the only kind of heads up that I got, and it was down to me to work out who was worldly and who was brethren. The girls were a bit easier because of the dresses and the skirts and the headbands, but the guys, I had no idea. So most of the time, I just sat on my own just to be safe.
So the guys aren't like buttoned up shirts, rolled up sleeves, and hair parted at the side. I thought that was like their bonnet and skirt.
Yeah, it definitely is, but there were a few other guys. It was like quite a posh office, I would say. So everyone
Okay.
was dressed up. So it's hard to tell with the guys.
Yeah, I'm not surprised it was a posh office. They made, what was it, worldwide? I think they made like £5 billion PPE contracts and things like that. What I know you don't want to get into names or whatever. Can you tell me what kind of company it was?
So they just like sold products. Our target for that year was 20 million profit. So that's the kind of money we're dealing with
Okay.
there.
Okay. So then you're working at this company selling products. You were like a sales manager. I can't remember what was your position?
Project leader.
Pardon me?
Project leader.
Project leader. Okay.
Mhm.
And and then you met a young man. What were the circumstances on how you guys first started talking, and give me sort of an idea, chronologicalize it for me as far as your relationship goes.
Yeah, so we started talking on my second or third week there. He messaged me on Microsoft Teams. We sat in the same office, but the office was dead silent on our floor. No one spoke to anybody.
Oh,
And he felt a bit sorry for me because I was kind of just sitting on my own. I wasn't talking to anyone. So we were just talking on Teams for a long time. And eventually he said, "Hey, I'll give you my number. We'll talk on WhatsApp instead." basically one of the managers figured out we were talking on Teams and had a problem with it and was saying, like, haven't you got enough work to do? So we moved it to WhatsApp instead. And that's kind of where things romantically started.
And WhatsApp is a violation of Plymouth Brethren code, right? Like you can't utilize certain sites and certain apps. Is that correct?
That is correct, but WhatsApp for them is fine.
Oh,
The fact that I had his number is really bad. But
oh.
yeah, they don't use like Facebook or anything. They use LinkedIn as kind of their social media page, but other than that, no.
So what is it like dating someone who was born? Okay, so I often like to preface these kinds of questions actually, so I'll do that now. I have I've spoken with I don't know 50 ex members or something, and one of the things that often ring true among many of them is that they have a sensitivity barometer for forgiveness when it comes to people who were born into the church because it's not their fault, right? Like they were raised a certain way and conditioned a certain way. So at the beginning of your relationship, what were the kind of telltale signs that you and him came from totally different worlds?
Um, Probably more when we were talking about the Brethren stuff. I was naturally curious. I had no idea what any of this was about. And he would get very defensive and just shut down the conversation. And he'd say, I can't talk about this with you, and would stop talking to me for a little while. But other than that, I'd say he was pretty normal.
Yeah. And so, what was your relationship like? Because when we first spoke on the phone, I remember thinking, and I think I said it to you, that it kind of sounds exciting, like in a certain way, because it's taboo. It's a weird kind of taboo because it's not your typical taboo. It is a religious firewall kind of taboo. But did you know? So you guys had to basically sneak around, like it was like a secret. It was like Romeo and Juliet shit. So like, can you give me an idea on what that was like?
Yeah, so it was fun and exciting, obviously. Basically, he would wait for his family to go to sleep and then he'd sneak out. So he would literally climb out his window, abseil down the side of his house, drive 45 minutes to come to my house. And we would stay up all night and then sleep for about an hour or two and then go to work. It was crazy.
Wow. And so you guys were together for about 7 months, you said?
Yeah, roughly.
So give me an idea then. When did it start to go south a little bit? Like I know, I guess there was always that stress point of him having to hide the fact that he was in a relationship with a quote outsider or worldly person, I think they called him. But what happened? Like was there a sort of a tipping point, and then was downhill from there? Like how did that work?
Yeah, so there was a few events leading up to it. Basically, I got sacked from the job because they saw me as a threat to him and they wanted to keep us apart. So that was the first thing. And then he was driving over to my house in the middle of the night and his mum called him because she had noticed he wasn't at home. So he went back. Um, and that was kind of fine. But then his priest said, hey, we just want to have a meeting with you, see how things are going. And from that, he said, okay, I'm going to tell them that I'm going to leave. I'm going to come live with you. Um, but from that meeting, they convinced him to block me and not talk to me again.
But that didn't last though, did it?
No. So that night, he did block me, and then hours later he unblocked me to see if I was okay because I was really upset. And I drove to his house and I convinced him to come out and speak to me. But yeah, this led to 6 months of backwards and forwards of him saying he can leave and then blocking me again. And yeah, it was really up and down.
And then you actually met with a couple of their elders.
Yes. So it was obvious he wasn't able to leave for me. And it got to a point where I was kind of like, well, I can't ask him to leave and not be willing to join myself. So, he was very on board with it. And luckily, the CEO of my company I worked for was an elder. So I contacted him pretending that I had like a work issue after like being sacked. And then when he picked up the phone, I was like, hey, I want to join.
Wow.
um, and then, yeah, we ended up meeting.
What was that meeting like?
So it was two elders and me. It was pretty bizarre. They basically put me down the whole time and was kind of saying, like, we are a privileged group of people. We were born into this holy special fellowship. What makes you think you're good enough to join us as an outsider?
What did you say?
um I kind of was just like, well, it's what I want to do, and you don't know me, but if you get to know me, you can see that I really am willing. And I kind of said to them, I wasn't speaking to my family and friends, I was reading the Bible. The boy gave me a whole script of things that I should say to try and impress them. So I was just trying to get on their good side, really.
And then how did that meeting wrap? They weren't very nice to you, were they?
No, not really.
I'm shocked, Emily. Just absolutely shocked. Go ahead.
Um, So they just basically spoke down to me the whole time. And they would just make kind of snide comments and laugh at me when I said, where I was from, what my family was like, that I didn't know the Bible inside and out. But the way it ended is they said that they'd be in contact with me and we'd meet in about 2 weeks' time. Um, so I started to chase them at that sort of point to say, like, hey, can we meet again? But they just gave me an email of a guy and said, you need to talk to him instead. And he's basically like the PR guy for the Brethren. And he never got back to me. So that's kind of where it ended.
What did this do to you emotionally? Because one thing about it that stuck out from when I talked to you on the phone is that you guys were actually like into each other. There was real emotion there. You love this person, and the fact that these types of circumstances did two things. One, it drove you apart. The second thing is that you considered joining this cult because of your feelings for this person. Where are you now, and how has it taken its toll on you?
So at this point, me and him haven't spoken for 3 months. So I and even before that, it was very difficult. And I feel like I've kind of learned to live without him at this point. For a long time, I was coming to terms with the fact that he's not going to be able to leave. But it was very hard at the beginning. I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping, I didn't leave the house. I was just crying all of the time. And, the constant back and forth of like, we'd be talking and then he'd block me again out of the blue, and then he'd come back and say, I want to be with you. It was just constant up and down, and I really didn't cope with it well.
And can you tell me what he was like? Take the negative stuff aside. Just why were you drawn to him?
He was just such a lovely, sweet boy, and he had kind of had this rebellious fun side. And I'm a bit more of a mature, serious person, but he really brought out that fun side in me, and we just laughed so often, and we just got on so well.
Is that fun side of you something that you can take with you, or do you think, or have you kind of has the breakup kind of put you back to where you were before you met him?
No, I think I kind of stayed with the fun side, actually. I learned a lot from him that I've taken away from all of this.
Such as?
Um, well, how to have more fun and laugh and not take life so seriously. But also, I guess, just how love isn't enough sometimes.
Are you? Do you have a creative outlet? I'm asking you that because I'm a person where when breakups happen, I have to retreat to creative outlets in order to purge what it is that I'm feeling. And I was just wondering, I'm just kind of curious if you have something that you were able to sort of utilize as a therapeutic tool to sort of get over this relationship, because this relationship isn't your typical type of relationship. You guys didn't break up because you didn't like each other. You guys broke up because the organization that he belonged to made him feel like he was sinning if he saw you. And you're a lovely person. Like, you seem like such a lovely person. Like, it's
Thank you.
remarkable to me that somebody, you know, could trade away love for for their religion? You know, like, is there,
Yeah.
you know, like what kind of outlet did you have in order to help cope with, if anything?
Um, Mainly going to the gym. That was kind of my thing.
Yeah.
It definitely got me out of the house and out of the kind of pit that I found myself in. I did. I wrote a few letters to him as well that I never sent, but it was just an outlet just to get it out on paper and in the bin ultimately.
Does that help? I've heard that for a long time about people who write letters but don't send them, and then I guess the release is the ink to the paper. Is that sort of what it was like for you?
Yeah, so it kind of felt like even though I didn't send it, it felt like I had said it and the words were kind of out there and they weren't in my head anymore. So I don't know, there's something therapeutic about binning them as well. It's like, this is over now. It's done. It's gone.
Do you think that you're at a place in your life where if he reached out again, that you would have the strength to be like, no, I can't do this? Or do you think that you're still in sort of a place where you wouldn't be able to help yourself and you'd want to communicate?
Um, I think I would say to him, leave first and then come and find me and then we'll talk because I can't go through the back and forth again.
That makes me want to weep.
Yeah.
Like, it is it's romantic, and I'm not trying to make light of it. I really am not. It's just, I'm just trying to think back in my own life if I have any examples of this, like, circumstantial reason to break up with somebody that you really love, and I can't even think of one. Like, it's very Romeo and Juliet. And one interesting thing is that before you started dating him, you were a non-believer as far as religion goes. But then dating him, despite the fact that he was part of that extremist sort of sect of Christianity, it turned you into a believer. Is that right?
Kind of, yeah. So I have always had an interest in it. And when we were just friends, he was the first Christian I knew. So I had all these questions and, he answered a lot of them and it kind of grew from there. But he is not the sole reason. He's just part of the reason.
Do you want to hang out with me so that we can get you back to the land of atheism? Because I can help you with that.
No, you can't help me with that.
No, I'm just kidding. No, but it's good. I think it's worth noting that you've been able to sort of extract positive things to take away from that relationship, despite the fact that it ended the way it did. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah.
Yeah. Give me an example, or give me, just sort of put me in your state of mind right now. You know, I know that the lingering effects from relationships can stay with people for a long time, especially if they've been betrayed. This wasn't that, though. This was like, his actual religion telling him that he can't. So, where does that put you today? Are you ready to date? Are you sort of taking it easy? Like, what's going on with Emily these days?
Um, I have been on some dating sites, but I'd say no, I'm not really ready to date. Um, in terms of how I am today, I hold a lot of compassion for him and that it's a tough situation, but there is parts of me that is like, I didn't deserve any of this. I shouldn't have been brought into your world and you brought me into it and you're not holding yourself responsible for what happened to us and me. So there is some level of anger there too.
Do you also feel like, and I asked you this the other day, that you in a way dodged a bullet? Because what if the elders were really nice to you and they were like, come on in? What do you think your life would be like today?
Um, so
And do you
I,
think that you could wear those bonnets and skirts? Like, do you think you'd rock those,
I
or?
mean, I quite often wear dresses anyway. I'm wearing one now, and
Yeah.
I have a lot of hair, so I don't mind tying it back. That wasn't the issue for me, to be honest.
No. What would
Um,
have been, but the sub what's the word I'm looking for? The subjectification? No, subjugation. I can't remember the word I'm looking for. But the oppression of women. The women cook and clean and have babies. Is that, would that have been? I mean, for some people maybe that's ideal. I don't know. Like, I guess it's ideal if you choose a lifestyle and that's what you choose. But if you're forced into that lifestyle box, that's a different story. But how do you think you would have coped with being a full-fledged member of the cult and not being able to speak until your husband said you were allowed to speak and things like that?
Um, so I wouldn't have minded a more traditional household. That wasn't so much an issue. I do speak my mind though, and I think I would have got into a lot of trouble with that, obviously being a woman. Um, so my idea was get in there, get married to him as soon as possible, because that probably would have happened quickly, and then get him out, before the babies come and before all this toxic stuff happened. That was my ultimate goal. I wasn't saying I was going to spend a lifetime in there,
That
hopefully.
would have that would have been a movie. I tried.
Yeah, I was hoping to be like a little undercover spy almost and come
Yeah.
out with all this information and be like, guys, look what I found, and then have my guy with me at the end of it.
Were your family and friends aware of the context that he was living inside of?
I think my family was. I definitely spoke to them about it, and I kind of said that, like, I explained I wanted to go into it, and for a while, possibly a few years, we wouldn't be able to talk. They kind of are more, they were upset, but more, you're an adult, you can do what you want. If that's it, as bizarre as it may be, do it. But my friends, not so much. There was no kind of compassion or understanding. And, my best friend in particular thought I was absolutely nuts
In what way?
for wanting to do all this for a boy. She was like, boys are not worth it. Like, he said he doesn't want to be with you, move on.
Now, that sounds harsh, but was she right?
In some respects, yes, I think
Yeah.
so.
Sometimes I guess the delivery of good advice, if the delivery is harsh, the advice doesn't sound very good. But I mean, I guess in hindsight, if she was like, maybe you should try to move on from this because it looks like the cult has him, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically. Definitely tough love.
I appreciate friends like that, but sometimes I don't. Like sometimes their tough love comes at a time where it's like you can tell me something, but can you just do it in a nicer way, please?
Yeah, be
Because
gentle. I'm fragile right now.
that's right. So where is life for you right now? Like, are you working? Are you are you spending? Do you feel normal again? Because I know that there is people that aren't part of the cult that sort of nibble the edges of the cult still get hit with shrapnel from the cult, and it impacts their lives. It certainly must have impacted you because of the way that your life path has could have been one way, but now it's another way without the person that you had feelings for. But is there any last like negative ancillary impacts that you've been experiencing since this whole experience?
Um, I think the thing I do struggle with is that kind of what if is probably always going to be in the back of my mind because we didn't get to see out the duration of our relationship. But ultimately, actually, my life is in a lot better position now than when before I met him. So yeah, I'm pretty good.
What makes it in a better position? I'm just kind of curious what your life is, what you're doing now.
Um, Well, from this experience, I did meet quite a few like ex-brethren people because I just wanted as much information as possible before I joined this cult. So,
Yeah.
I have a bunch of new friends now, and I have new jobs, and obviously I'm a Christian now, so it kind of worked, I guess, in the end.
Yeah. Well, listen, I think I think that the story is compelling. The fact that you had to go through something like that is unfortunate, but maybe the growth that you experienced is positive in the long run. You seem great. You seem very well put together. I thank you very much, by the way, for joining us here on Blackballed. I really appreciate your time.
No worries.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye, Emily. That is a first. I would love to see how many people. I know that there's someone that I know in Australia that whose wife is someone that wasn't part of the cult and then I think married him after he got out. But this is the first time that I personally have I've heard of a story of a person who has had a relationship with a person that was in the PVCC but was not a member themselves. I'm sure there's going to be ex-members that contact me saying that maybe it's more common than I think. But just as a person who's done, I don't know, 75 podcasts on this cult, I've talked to at least 45, 50 ex-members. I have yet to hear of this type of story. Maybe I did hear one in passing, but I've certainly never spoken to anyone. And she seems so lovely that it is, that guy must be kicking himself. But that's the power of this cult, is that, someone as clearly as lovely as Emily is, and you throw her away because your cult told you that you had to throw her away. It's sad, it's tragic, it's all those things, but it's also something that I think is indicative of just how powerful it can be to be brainwashed from birth. So, so my hat's off to Emily. I think that she's not only brave, but she's one of those people who, seems to be able to navigate the waters of this kind of tragedy or heartache in a way that seems to be beneficial for her. I thought it was really interesting that she went from being a non-believer to a Christian because of his influence. I'm not passing any judgments on that at all. I just find it interesting. And I'm really happy that she didn't join the cult in the end, but also at the same time sad that she couldn't see out that relationship. So my big thanks to Emily. This Thursday, I'm going to have a one podcast or two between now and Thursday. I'm back now. I'm back in the saddle. I'm going to be doing podcasts on a regular basis. I'm going to be writing more. Dean keeps on messaging me, telling me to write more, so I'm going to start doing that. There's two stories, first of all, that I want to talk about before we go. One of them is Australia has approved MDMA and psilocybin for PTSD and depression. And they're the first country in the world to actually come up with psychiatrist-led therapy sessions dealing with PTSD and depression by utilizing MDMA and psilocybin. I think that this is wonderful, and not for the silly, funny reasons, because I like to do hero doses of mushrooms every once in a while. I truly believe that that psychedelics, especially, have a unique place in medicine, especially when it comes to mental health. And MDMA being used for PTSD. If you have ever done ecstasy where you weren't at a nightclub, where you were just hanging out with people, and you realized halfway through the night how positive everyone was being, it is interesting. It's not like sometimes I really don't like it when people compare drugs like MDMA and mushrooms to cocaine or alcohol or even weed. They are not even in the same universe. There's something, first of all, MDMA is an empathic drug. It strips you of your ego. It makes you positive. It makes you look at things, look at other people, and understand their perspectives. Especially if you're engrossed in conversation and you both are high on MDMA, it's lovely. It's not all messed up, and you're not sitting there not making any sense or whatever. It is a great therapeutic exercise to just have a great conversation for hours on end while you're on MDMA. And psilocybin, a little bit more inward, strips you of your ego. It makes you look at things without having to be poisoned and bothered by that negative voice inside your head. And if used right, it can really be beneficial in the battle against depression and to improve your overall mental health. So that's a story that I'm going to see if I can get on the Australian psychiatrist, whose name escapes me right now, who put the program together. I've been emailing back and forth with him. So we're going to try to get him on either this week or next. And on Thursday, one of my favorite all-time artists, his name is Sage Francis. If you do not know who Sage Francis is, that's okay. I almost envy you, because if you go to YouTube right now and just type in Sage Francis, start with Makeshift Patriot. Makeshift Patriot is a political song that he put out in 2001, exactly 1 month after 9/11. He put it out on Napster. And it actually worked against him in a certain way. He didn't want to be known as a political rapper, and he was not a political rapper. This song is certainly a political song. And but it put him on the map as well. And then throughout the years, this guy is a great poet. He's one of the most respectful practitioners of hip hop culture. I love that about him. So Sage Francis will be on Thursday, and we will have a show for you, maybe even tonight, but also definitely tomorrow as well. And until then, we'll see you next time on Blackballed.
Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed. Black.